Bitcoin is always going to be bear money. And if you look at the global state of things, trust in institutions is not going up, it's going down. And when that is going down, people seek bearer assets. And, you know, I think we might be blinded to that fact because ETFs are hoovering up more Bitcoin, treasury companies are hoovering up more Bitcoin. But at the same time, Bitcoin will continue to grow in value. And there are a lot of people holding their own Bitcoin still. So I don't see that as a risk because of necessity. People will need to transact Bitcoin because of necessity. It's not an ideological thing. Like, we need to spend Bitcoin because if we don't spend Bitcoin, it's going to fail. It's a necessity thing. And if it wasn't a necessity thing, then Bitcoin would fail. Like, if it depends on us to make people spend Bitcoin, then it's not going to work. Bitcoin works because the incentives work and because deep down, people want bearer assets when things are shaky. And that's just a lesson that history has taught us over and over again, right? Before it would be gold and silver or bills. Now it's going to be Bitcoin. It's just a question of when they understand that it is Bitcoin. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that inflection point.
It's being a Bitcoin maximalist, just, obsessed about what's happening. I'm watching all day long. It feels like it's so obvious and it's taking forever. It's like watching paint dry. In hindsight, you look back and you're like, wow, this is all happening really quickly. So I'm curious, do you think it's possible for any company to ever catch Michael Saylor? Like, I think he's on track to have the most valuable company in the world.
I mean, it seems impossible now. So, when I posted that, I thought he wouldn't get there, but he got there. And now he's almost at 3%. And this is why I think we've got to melt up, because there's no way that he can get to 3% and we're still sitting at sub 0.2M. So Omega is coming. Like, there's no way. Like, okay, let me think about it this way. Like, can Saylor get to 5%? Like, and we're still at sub 0.2M? There's 0% chance that happens, right? So we'll see. I think Saylor has got an excellent, well-oiled money machine powering his Bitcoin reactor, and he'll keep going. And there might be some that can catch up to him. We'll see. But not catch up, but like get closer to him. I think maybe one other company could do it. But for the bulk of it, I think everyone's going to aspire to be some fraction of strategy. Like, maybe we'll aspire to be 1/5 of strategy. That's our goal, because he's just too far ahead to be caught up to.
So if that's the case, in order for us to rip to 1M, do you know what kind of tsunami of capital would need to come in during what kind of duration of time? Because I feel like there's a lot of capital that could come into Bitcoin pretty quickly. Do you have any estimates around that?
Hard to say. I think we should have been here already. So
Yeah.
I would have thought that the ETFs opening the floodgates combined with strategy would have gotten us there already. And this is why I'm one of the believers that there is paper Bitcoin out there dampening the market. So we'll see. But, nothing stops the train. It's going to go. The dollar is going to keep on inflating and Bitcoin is going to keep going up. It's just a question of when it all converges.
Yeah. And so if there's paper Bitcoin and that becomes and that gets exposed, would that cause a crash, or would that cause the price to rip? I've never really thought about that.
Hard to say. Depends on what the market thinks of it at the end of the day. But I think like the 80,000 coins that were market sold is a good indicator that the market doesn't care about anything now. Like, there's just too much power behind accumulation, whether it's strategy or other Bitcoin treasury companies or hodlers or ETF buyers too. There's just a massive amount of insatiable demand, and the demand is only going to go up.
Yeah. Do you have any idea who on earth would sell 80,000 coins? That doesn't make sense to me. I think like, okay, so somebody, let's say it was an OG whale that was buying for pennies or a couple dollars a coin to get to this point and to maintain possession of 80,000 coins. They have to have a level of conviction where they didn't just sell 80,000 coins so they could go buy 42, trophy real estate properties and a bunch of SMP. Like, who would sell 80,000 coins? Is that a nation state?
No, it might be an early holder. I mean, there have been rumors that it's some estate sale, but nobody knows for sure.
Yeah, because what is that? That's $8 billion. Yeah, I think that's $8 billion. Maybe that an estate sale that would make sense. But it was incredible how quickly the market just gobbled all those coins up.
Yeah. Bitcoin didn't care. It just subsumed all of it.
Yeah, and so based upon that, and you've kind of already, I mean, quite literally said this, you don't think that we're in for another 80% pullback. You think those days are likely to be behind us?
Nothing is impossible, but it does not seem likely with the current state of things.
What are your thoughts about Saylor? And so this got a lot of controversy and blowback a little bit. Mitch Hodel, I believe, asked him in Vegas about proof of reserves. Of course, the Bitcoin purist Maxis kind of went nuts, but his answer was effectively, he brought up liabilities. He said that he asked ChatGPT like what the risks are. There's all these risks. So you have, I believe, one of the ETFs, if I'm correct, has proof of reserves. El Salvador has proof of reserves. It seems to be like a sales pitch. Hey, we got proof of reserves. How much does that matter or not?
I mean, I think it doesn't matter as much for a public company. I mean, it's a nice touch, but at the end of the day, you really need to know what the liabilities are, right? You need proof of reserves and, proof of liabilities, but your liabilities could be dollar denominated and deeply entrenched in the financial system. So how do you audit that? There's no on-chain liabilities, right? You're going to depend on an auditor no matter what to get the full picture at the end of the day. So I think you have to be okay that, he doesn't post the reserves. I mean, he could, but it's not needed to get the full picture because this is a security. It is a stock. You're depending on a lot of TradFi systems and controls that it works. It's not Bitcoin. And I think, he hasn't identified all of the wallets, but people outside have. So, if you want, you can kind of look and see. He's basically got all the coins, but at least he doesn't have to identify it himself, which in his view, I think I listened to clips of that. He was saying there's risks to that, right? Like, it could be targeted or whatnot. But if someone else is analyzing, then, you can assume it's accurate, but only he knows for sure where all the coins are and with which custodian. So there is some mitigation on his view of security, I guess. So for me, it doesn't really matter because it is a stock. If I wanted proof of reserves, then I would want that from, I don't know, an exchange. But even then, you don't know what the liabilities are, right? So I'll say it again, like the best thing is just to have your own Bitcoin. If you're worried about some entity, some company having reserves, it means you have some exposure there and you have some risk. And if you're not comfortable with that, then don't be in that and sit in cold stored Bitcoin and you have your own proof of reserves.
Were you shocked when Trump signed the executive order for the SBR?
Yes and no. I think for him, it was a low hanging fruit that he could just do something and say promises made, promises kept, right? It didn't cost him anything. It was within his power to do so with executive order. And he paved the way for, non-budget neutral acquisition. And I think that's all powerful stuff. I think what is lacking now, and many Bitcoiners are seeing this, is execution on that front. Like, where is the audit of Fort Knox? Where is the tally of all the Bitcoin held by the government? And I think we're still waiting for that. And where is the next phase in the SBR? Like, when are you going to put up a website and accumulate? So I think we should all be holding them accountable, but we should also be fair in understanding that governments are not exactly the most efficient, well-oiled machines out there. So maybe they'll get to it. And I'm more of a glass half full kind of guy, so I think they'll get to it, but we'll see. But I'm hopeful that they do execute on the SPR. But to answer your question, I think it's kind of expected. It was low-hanging fruit enough that he could do that, get a PR win, and get his donors happy. And then the rest is up to 𝗕𝗧𝗖𝗖 and everyone else to execute on that. Well, it's also a tool. So for Gen3, we like to work on nation state adoption. So we can go to other countries and say, hey, look at the SPR. And they're not going to ask, like, did they do anything? And we're not going to tell them that, but we'll say, he did that. So why don't you do that too? And if you get enough people doing that, passing legislation, creating things like a framework for an SPR, eventually one of them is going to execute on that.
Yeah. Is it possible that the United States government is acquiring Bitcoin quietly? Because you'd think there'd be an incentive to do so. If they announce a purchase, there's that Omega candle.
I don't think it's possible. It's hard for any government to do stuff in secret. Well, things that are beneficial for the country, it's hard for them to do it in secret. Other things, it's much easier. Like, you could do a lot of things in secret, but for something like Bitcoin, like an asset, it would be like saying, can you buy gold in secret? It's probably hard. You need to, because it's part of the financial system and you have to be all above board, right? Like, where did you buy from? How is it custodied? There's a ton of questions that have to be answered. Like, it can't just be Trump directing someone in some agency to buy and send it to his Blockstream Jade wallet on his desk, right? There's got to be more controls and process in place for something like that. So I think it's really hard for a country to sneakily buy Bitcoin, even though they should. But I think it's hard. Just like it's hard for them to get to the point where they can't even buy, right? Like the city of Vancouver, Mayor Ken Sim has said that he wants the city to buy Bitcoin for its treasury, for its reserves. But he's said, like, there's 2 years of red tape he's got to go through to even get to that point. So, yeah, the answer is they could do it in theory, but in reality, they probably need to go through and cross the T's and dot the I's before they can really buy Bitcoin.
Trump's talking about, drill, baby, drill. If they're going to be drilling, they're going to be fracking. If you're going to be fracking, then you got to be mining. Do you think that it's logical to think that sooner than later that the United States government gets into Bitcoin mining, subsidizing it in some sort of way? I mean, what kind of involvement do you think that they could have and what time frame?
Well, if not the federal level, definitely at the state level. And you're already seeing a lot of that happening in Texas. But I've said this for, I don't know, 6-7 years now. But eventually mining and energy generation is just the same thing. It's two sides of the same coin. So if you have a national utility, they're going to mine Bitcoin just because it makes sense to do so, even from a grid management perspective. The monetary upside is just icing on the cake. And as people understand what Bhutan did, mining Bitcoin and getting $1 billion in Bitcoin in their reserve, more people will do that. And that's something we're trying to do now at Gen3. We're trying to engage with governments to start small pilot projects. We found that this might be a better strategy than engaging at the very top and, meeting with the president or prime minister and trying to get him to do something, because it's really hard to get them to do something, not just at an intellectual level, but at an execution level too, for the reasons I said before. It's hard to do things in any government.